A magnetic woman doesn't become magnetic by accident. She doesn't just stumble into her power, and she doesn't rely on luck, looks, or charm alone. What truly sets her apart is her inner world, a reality she has intentionally shaped over time. At the center of her magnetism is something far stronger than appearance or status: alignment. This kind of alignment isn't about being flawless. It's about being in sync mentally, emotionally, and energetically. Her thoughts aren't fighting with her feelings. Her desires aren't blocked by self-doubt. Her energy doesn't chase, beg, or cling. It stands firm, it trusts, it attracts. This inner coherence sends a steady, clear signal out into the quantum field, into the very fabric of reality, drawing toward her everything that matches her frequency. Most people don't receive what they deeply want because they're divided inside. They think one thing, feel something else, and behave from yet another place. They say they want love but fear loss. They imagine success but live in constant tension. This kind of inner conflict distorts the signal they're putting out, and life responds by mirroring back that confusion. But the queen understands something deeper. To be magnetic is to be whole. She brings her inner world into harmony with the woman she's becoming. She thinks like her, feels like her, moves, talks, and breathes as though that version of herself already exists. Because in truth, it does. She doesn't wait for the world around her to shift before she aligns internally. She understands that in the quantum model of reality, cause comes before effect. So she becomes the cause. That means she wakes up each day and chooses her energy. She decides who she will be. She doesn't react to the chaos outside. She responds from a calm, steady, and intentional center. When a woman begins to live like this deliberately and with deep awareness, something remarkable happens. Her presence transforms. She glows. Her energy's felt before she says anything. People notice her without knowing why. They are drawn to her, not because she seeks attention, but because she no longer needs it. That absence of need, that sense of inner wholeness is magnetic. It pulls people in like gravity. And this magnetism isn't fake. It's not a mask or act. It's what naturally happens when you live in harmony within. The queen isn't trying to become someone. She already is that someone. She doesn't chase opportunities. They find her. She doesn't beg for love. She becomes love itself. She doesn't scramble to prove her worth. She carries a deep knowing that she already is enough. But this kind of alignment isn't something you do once and forget. It's a daily process. The magnetic woman sits in stillness not just to relax her mind, but to train it. She meditates not to avoid life, but to rise above it. She practices emotions like joy, gratitude, and love not because everything is perfect, but because she knows those feelings are the language of attraction. She chooses to feel it now so she can experience it later. She watches her thoughts, not to criticize them, but to guide them. She becomes conscious of the moment her mind drifts toward fear, lack, or insecurity. And in that moment of noticing, she takes her power back because the second you become aware, you stop being the program. You become the programmer. The queen lives by this. She doesn't let her past stories hypnotize her. She wakes up from them and rewrites her life as she goes. And here's the truth. Alignment feels like freedom. It feels like calm. It feels like certainty that what you want isn't outside of you, but inside you waiting to be awakened. The queen doesn't become magnetic by doing more. She becomes magnetic by being more of who she truly is. Beneath the noise, beneath the old habits, beneath the fear, She lets go of everything that doesn't match her future self, and what remains is brilliant, strong, and unforgettable. In a world full of noise, distraction, and pressure to compare, a woman in alignment is rare and powerful. She doesn't shout to be noticed. She doesn't fight to be chosen. She doesn't shrink to fit in. Her essence speaks for her. Her energy enters the room before she does. Her alignment. One of the biggest breakthroughs a woman has on her path to becoming magnetic is breaking her dependence on outside. It's not an easy shift. It means undoing years or even decades of conditioning that taught her to look for love, approval, and value outside of herself. That validation used to feel like air. A compliment, a look, a message, it could lift her for a moment, but like all addictions, the high faded quickly, and when it faded, it left her emptier. It made her dependent. It made her forget who she was before the world tried to define her. Kent. But the magnetic woman no longer lives off of attention. She realizes that outside validation is a fake form of power. It looks good. It feels nice, but it doesn't last. It keeps you stuck in a loop trying to impress, to be liked, to be picked. But the queen doesn't play that game. She doesn't change herself to be accepted. She walks away from that cycle because she knows a deep truth. Anything you chase outside yourself will eventually control you. So she turns inward, not to hide, but to free herself. She starts to watch herself. She notices the ways she once handed away her power. Cat. She sees how her emotions used to swing based on someone else's words. How she used to dress or speak in a way that pleased people who never truly saw her. How she made herself smaller so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. How she craved love before learning to give it to herself. And in noticing these patterns, she begins to let them go. She begins to unhook from the need to be anything other than real. This doesn't make her cold or distant. In fact, it brings her closer to herself. She starts to build a real relationship with her own soul. She talks to herself kindly. She trusts her inner voice. She respects her limits. She learns to be alone without feeling lonely. She doesn't need to distract herself with attention or noise. That deep connection with herself becomes her source of strength. Science shows that our brains can get addicted not just emotionally but chemically to certain patterns. The praise, the messages, the likes, they trigger feel-good chemicals. And when they disappear, the brain craves more. But the queen doesn't let her biology decide her destiny. She breaks the cycle. She teaches her body how to feel complete without needing to be seen. She no longer relies on the outside to feel valuable. She builds her worth on the inside, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. When she meditates, she isn't just closing her eyes. She's rewriting her nervous system. She's stepping out of the identity that once depended on being liked and stepping into the truth of who she is. She practices new beliefs not just as phrases, but as powerful rewiring tools. She imagines herself moving through life with quiet strength. She visualizes herself choosing peace over people-pleasing. She feels what it's like to be full without applause. And that inner transformation starts to show on the outside. She becomes calmer, more centered, more grounded. She doesn't react to every opinion. She doesn't fear rejection because her value is no longer tied to being accepted. She becomes wise about where her energy goes. Not everyone gets access. Not every word gets a response. She has clear boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect her peace. She lives with standards, not out of pride, but from self-respect. When people feel that shift and something beautiful happens, when she stops searching outward for validation, she begins to attract people and experiences that match her inner state. The more she heals on the inside, the healthier her outer world becomes. The more she listens to her own voice, the more life aligns with her path because she's no longer waiting to be chosen. She's already chosen herself. She no longer vibrates from a place of need. She vibrates from a place of fullness. That shift in energy is what makes her magnetic. She's not waiting to be chosen anymore. She chooses herself. Eh, She isn't searching for proof that she's enough. She carries that truth within her. Okay? She doesn't need to be told she's beautiful to feel beauty in her being. Okay? She doesn't need to be liked to like herself. Her energy no longer whispers, "Please approve of me." Declares, "I can know exactly who I am." And that kind of knowing becomes a calm, steady confidence that can move mountains without raising her voice. And as she continues to let go of her craving for outside validation, she becomes lighter, freer, and even more powerful. She gathers the parts of herself that were once scattered by others' opinions. She stops asking the world, "Am I good enough now?" and begins asking herself, "What would it feel like to live as if I already am?" That one question becomes her guide. That internal change becomes her quiet revolution. Um, the shift from average to magnetic begins with a bold choice to no longer live from the memories of yesterday, but from the possibilities of tomorrow. Most people repeat the same day over and over. They wake up, feel the same emotions, think the same thoughts, make the same choices, and experience the same outcomes. Their personality stays locked in place, and their life mirrors that sameness. But the woman who's rising into her power, the one stepping into her crown, knows must interrupt this cycle. She chooses to live not from who she was, eunuch, but from who she is becoming. When she wakes up, she doesn't immediately fall back into her old patterns or past pain. She understands the brain is like a record of the past, shaped by old experiences and beliefs. If she keeps running on that record, she'll only keep repeating what she's already lived. So she chooses to break the pattern. She doesn't use her imagination to relive trauma. She uses it to design her future. She mentally practices being her new self, a woman who is free, glowing, strong, and complete. She envisions her, and most importantly, she trusts her even before there's any outer proof that this new version of her is. This isn't about pretending. This isn't about denying the pain. She has faced the darkness, cried the tears, acknowledged the loss, but she no longer lets those moments define her. She doesn't let her past write her identity anymore. The wounds are part of her story, but they don't shape her worth. Her identity, something she builds step by step, choice by choice, based on the future she's committed to. Living from the future means becoming emotionally familiar with the unknown. That's the secret. Most people live in emotional survival mode, constantly replaying feelings of rejection, failure, and betrayal. These emotional patterns become habits that keep them stuck in the past. But the magnetic woman knows that to enter a new life, she must start practicing emotions she hasn't yet experienced with her physical senses. She must feel grateful before the blessings arrive. She must feel love before the relationship comes. She must feel successful before the evidence shows up. She must believe in the invisible more than the visible. This isn't daydreaming. It's a powerful, energetic, and neurological process. When she feels like her future is already happening, her body starts to believe it. Her brain creates new pathways. Her heart beats in harmony, her whole energy shifts. And that shift is what brings her future into reality. It's not about forcing things or controlling the timeline. It's about becoming the version of herself who already lives in that future. She begins to notice when the old version of her shows up, the one who hesitates, you know, doubts, remembers the pain, and expects more of it. In those moments, she makes a new choice. She stops the cycle. She speaks from her future self, not the girl who was hurt. She offers herself grace. She breathes the discomfort. She returns to the vision because she knows that each time she chooses her future over her past, she makes that future more real. She walks differently. She speaks from a deeper place. She no longer needs people to understand her. She understands herself. She no longer waits for approval to shine. She gives herself full permission. She aligns with her higher self, not because it's the easy prax, but because it's the necessary one. The cost of living from the past is too high. It keeps her small, reactive, and disconnected from her power. And she knows she was never meant to live small. In her everyday practices, she connects with her future. In quiet moments, she steps into her new identity. She asks herself, how would she think? How would she feel? How would she walk through this world? And she chooses to be her. Her how? Not someday, not when things are perfect, but now. Again and again, because she understands that reality, follows identity. The world doesn't respond to who you used to be. It responds to who you are now. Each time she thinks beyond what's been, she breaks away from who she used to be. Every time she feels love for no reason, she teaches her body a new emotional state. Every time she acts as if her dream is already here, she draws it closer. The space between her past and her future self grows smaller until one day there's no gap left. There's only embodiment. There's only the woman who no longer lives from pain but from power. There is only the queen. The magnetic woman understands something many miss. Your energy speaks louder than words ever will. Long before she says a word or enters a space, her frequency has already spoken. People feel her not because of her looks or title or achievements, but because of the way her presence affects the room. Without trying, she communicates a silent message: confidence without pride, strength without pressure, elegance without needing approval. She doesn't fight for attention, she draws it naturally. In a world obsessed with performing, proving, pretending, the magnetic woman speaks a language that's older and more powerful: vibration. She understands that every emotion carries energy, and that energy is what shapes her world. If she feels needy, insecure, or desperate, she will pull in people and experiences that match those emotions. But if she feels grounded, joyful, peaceful, and whole, she becomes a light that draws in the same. The woman who has mastered this doesn't try to control her surroundings with words or tactics. She doesn't force her voice to be heard or push things into place. She doesn't chase love, jobs, or attention. Instead, she tends to her inner world. She becomes intentional with her energy, knowing that her life is always responding to her state of being. The people she meets, the events she experiences, and even the problems she faces, they all reflect her inner state. Okay? When something feels off, she doesn't blame the world. She looks within. She asks herself what she's thinking, what she's feeling, and what kind of signal she's sending, because she knows everything is energy: her thoughts, her emotions, and her beliefs. So rather than trying to control the outside world, she adjusts her frequency. She becomes what she wishes to experience. She stops striving and starts embodying. If she wants love, she radiates love. If she wants abundance, she lives in the vibration of it. She doesn't just imagine her dreams. She feels them deep in her body until they become her truth. And from that place of truth, she moves forward, not in desperation, not in hurry, but in trust. This is not passive. It is deeply intentional. It requires awareness to watch her own state of mind. It takes focus to notice, when her energy slips and bring herself back into alignment. It takes bravery to respond from who she wants to be instead of reacting from who she was. But over time, that discipline becomes her gift. She teaches her nervous system to stay calm, strong, and open. Not sometimes, but regularly. She knows energy isn't just a word. It's the invisible connection she carries with her. It's the silent message she sends to the world before she even speaks a word. People feel her presence when she speaks. There's weight behind her words, not because she's louder or more convincing, but because her energy is pure, steady, and aligned. Yeah. She's not scattered, she's not pretending, she's not performing, she's in full alignment with herself. And that alignment creates a strong presence. People are naturally drawn to her because her energy makes them feel safe, inspired, or simply more alive. They might not even know why they're attracted to her, but they are. Because energy never lies. Energy doesn't need to convince anyone. It either draws you in or it doesn't. And when energy is artistry and elevated, it becomes magnetic. She also understands that attraction isn't just about pulling things toward her. It's about flowing with life. The urge to control everything.